Individualization for me has really helped me understand why I had a career where I create learning experiences. And whether it's 30 kids in a classroom, or they're teachers who I was doing software and tech training for in the afternoons, or now that I do keynote speeches that range from 100 to 500, it feels like I can connect individually with each person. And I think that for me has been the superpower of individualization. It actually helps me use the other talents and aim them in a way that could be very, very beneficial to other people in the room.
Hello, welcome back to Season 3 of Coach to Coach. Today, we are talking about the mighty and amazing strength of individualization. I have Alicia and Eduardo in studio with me today. Thank you both for joining.
Thanks for having us.
And they are going to take us on the path down this amazing strength. First of all, Alicia, could I have you share your top 5, where you are calling in from today, a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So thank you so much for having me. My top 5 are communication, individualization, learner, and input. I'm calling today actually from the East Coast, from New Jersey, but I currently, for the last 25 years, have lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a solopreneur, a workplace coach and consultant, and January will mark my 15 years of having my own coaching practice. And next Sunday will mark 10 years of my Gallup Strengths Coach certification.
That's awesome. 10-year veteran, 10-year original entrepreneur with it. You know, I have to say, 15-year solopreneur journey. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Maybe that'll come through in the conversation. I just have to say that's the best woo intro at number 3 I've heard so far in the entire season. We haven't got to the woo folks yet, but they're gonna have to stand up to that one when it comes. Eduardo.
Hey, Brandon, how are you? Thanks so much for having me. Alicia, I love that woo. My name is Eduardo Villavicencio. I'm in the DC area. My top 5 are woo, individualization, ideation, analytical, futuristic, and because of individualization, I'd like to also add that communication and activator come right after.
And what are you up to, if you could share with our guests?
Definitely. So my career has taken some twists and turns, starting out as a K-12 teacher many years ago. But I actually became certified as a Clifton Strengths coach in 2018, 8 years after I took the Clifton Strengths test in grad school. And I just thought, whatever. And I put it away. And I was lucky that after having a small business for a couple of years, I went into the corporate world, and my first corporate experience, which I could talk about later, was just not ideal. And I hired my first coach that wasn't an athletic coach. And so that's when I learned a little bit about what strengths actually meant. And so really excited. I'll share a little bit more about how I help teams get better using their strengths.
Very cool. Okay, so as you know, listeners, we take one strength and we have our 2 experts go through and talk about it with each other. And I'm going to set them up with this first question. Eduardo, you can go take the first bite at this. Talk to us about the strength of individualization.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you for just what a great opportunity to really pause and reflect. For me, individualization, when I first read it, it seems so lone wolf, customized, that type of thing. And I think perhaps before I understood it, it did show up like that for a lot of folks. But I think individualization for me has really helped me understand why I had a career where I create learning experiences. And whether it's 30 kids in a classroom, or they're teachers who I was doing software and tech training for in the afternoons, or now that I do keynote speeches that range from 100 to 500, it feels like I can connect individually with each person. And I think that for me has been the superpower of individualization. It actually helps me use the other talents and aim them in a way that could be very, very beneficial to other people in the room.
I love it. Thank you. Alicia, what about you?
Yeah, so when I first took this, Clifton Strengths, it was about 12 years ago. And I read through the list and I said it out loud and I said, individual what? And I thought, Gallup, is that even a real word? So, it was a new word, right? Individualization. And what it's obviously I've come to really understand it and love it. And it really accounts for two things for me. How I relate to others. So I see people as unique individuals. I don't really see them as groups of people. And I see differences right away because differences are people's uniqueness. So I notice, right, someone who's different than me, how are they unique? And the other way that I see it is I like to be individualized too. So when I order a salad at a restaurant with no tomatoes and dressing on the side and light Parmesan cheese, I want what I individually asked for.
I love it. I've often marveled at this strength as the wild card, the one that can mirror so many different strengths and tendencies and culture, language, accents. It can pick up on nuances. And then you both bring out just that quality of this strength where you really do center in, connect to, and relate to people on a very personal level. And so from giving a good gift to appropriate words and time to adjusting how you coach, how you teach them. So I'd like to think of individualization as the coach's strength. It's the one that stands out above all. And as you said, Alicia, it's an invented term. It was a way to describe this customization quality that Dr. Don Clifton and team had to really search out. How do we describe this ability? And so given that you shared it, number 2, and you have some similar strengths around it. Woo woo, here both of your woos coming through, but you do have some interesting differences as well. So part of what I hope to have our listeners enjoy is you two now starting to connect individualization to your other strengths and give you a chance to interview each other. But also, let's not be shy about application, because coaching an individualizer, training rooms with individualization, leaders, managers, there is a distinction there. It does require, I have found that it does require some intentionality, because this strength can be one of the most sought after assets for effective leadership. And in the management realm, I would almost say when you find it, you find someone who has great potential to do really well in people leadership. And yet at the same time, especially as teams grow, it does require some advancing. It has to mature. It has to be able to see the team. It has to make group decisions that affect individuals, but you got to start to see in a bigger place. So excited to hear you both go. And so I am going to just tee it up with this. Both of you, individualization, number 2, woo is there, communication is there, and then you got these other cool strengths. And so who's curious first? Who wants to ask the other first?
I'll go ahead and ask. I usually go.
I was waiting for activator to come through.
Right? I usually go ladies first, right? But because Alicia and I have connected previously, we've had a chance to work together many years ago. I asked Alicia, hey, where you're executing, right? And so Alicia happens to have responsibility and belief in her top 10. And I bring that up because my first executing isn't until 12 or 13. So I wanted to ask Alicia the last time we talked about, how do you think that influences your individualization?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll start with sort of a basement, if you will. Those of you that have responsibility and belief as dominant Clifton strengths might relate to this. Those two strengths together can be a little judgy. So, right, and with the individualization, so individualization can help me with it because I want people to be as responsible as me. I want people to care as passionately about recycling the toilet paper holder in my house as I am, right? And so I can be very like, what is wrong with... I texted a friend 3 days ago. She's ghosting me. I respond to people within 24 hours. That's the responsible thing to do. And so what individualization can really help me is to remember not everybody's like me. And what's interesting to connect with that is I was very surprised that empathy was not in my top 15. I was shocked. I'm at the gym watching something on, sad story, and I'm like crying, right? So I can feel things very deeply. But when I started to learn about the Clifton Strength definition of empathy and the Clifton Strengths, the lexicon, the specific definitions in Gallup's terms, I realize how individualization is just really such the better fit for me. And so that ability to have, the awareness of other people's lived experience. Other people are doing the best they can. And so how can I make sure I'm individualizing and not expecting people to be like me?
That's great. Oh, that's great, Alicia. Excellent. Yeah, and I actually, if I can bounce off of that, not expecting people to be off like me, right? There's a leadership piece, right, that Brandon was asking us about that I think early in my career and before I even took the assessment, and 8 years later until I actually read it, understood it as a coach, I was always expecting the organization I worked for, whether it be a K-12 school or a nonprofit or any of my clients, and now eventually the corporate or management consulting world where I do a lot of my work, to see me as individual. And as a non-people leader, I could imagine, right, back then being really like annoying and almost like a heavy weight on a manager who had me as part of the team, because I was always wanting, hey, why don't you see me uniquely? Not knowing that that was a talent filter that I saw everyone else. So as a K-12 teacher, when I'm at the top of the room and all the parents are so amazed at how detailed my comments are about little Jim and little Janie and what they do and the last time they brought this up, I think fast forward when I'm on the team, when I'm in and a manager's trying to lead the whole team, and I'm like, hey, what about me over here? Not knowing that that might have been just a huge blocker so for those leaders who have individualization, it's great to know, oh, how can I customize, like you said, my people development of each of my team members, and yet not to get overwhelmed by having to have it be customized. But also for those who don't have individualization, you don't need it, right? But be aware that there might be someone on your team who can help you get to know everyone on the team, but who may want you to get to know him or her first.
Yeah, and that right there, that's an individualization strategy, right, that you're providing. You know what it reminds me of? Ken Blanchard, all of his, situational leadership. I feel like that's an example actually of a leadership model, a style of managing or working with people that is really uses individualization, that strength. Does that make sense to you?
That totally makes sense. And someone with since we have individualization talent, we can actually distinguish potentially those moments, right? And I don't know, do you do it based on the environment or the setting, or do you do it based on who you meet, like who shows up in front of you, and that's when you shift? What do you think?
So you mean if just in my everyday, how that individualization, how I'm using that, how that might show up? It's instantaneous for me. I just flew over here to New Jersey, and it reminded me, ever since I was young, I started flying quite young actually, and I am fascinated in airports, and I don't know why airports of all places, but I think it's because I don't really have anything else to do, right? And if I'm not traveling with my kids necessarily, but I look at every person I walk by, and how you're going to your gate, and then the people that just landed are going this way, and I'm like, oh, they have flip-flops. They're tan. They were in a warm place, right? I want to know their stories. And it's nothing, this is the thing about strengths. It's nothing I do. It's completely unconscious.
I had never thought of that. But the things that I notice, and my friends say, how did you notice that? Right. I hadn't thought of in an airplane, because I travel a lot for my clients, and I and even what I remember, which is unfortunate, I think, in the way of individualization being a raw talent, that's where it almost is way too much. Luckily, I don't have input very high. I don't have learner very high, right? I know. I think you do. Right? I have includer, but yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say based on that?
No, you just said learner and input. Right. And I'd love to hear, maybe I can real quickly share. I've got a good example for individualization and input. And then I would love to hear how it works with your ideation, your analytical, even the activator. So what I have learned about input, because input was another one of my strengths that I was like, what is this? Right. I didn't know. Yes, I'm a researcher, I'm a cataloger, I'm a resourcer, I'm a resource giver, right? All these things about input. What individualization helps me do is tailor and customize what I share with other people. So I can overwhelm people. My input can absolutely overwhelm people. And so especially when I'm coaching, it's so helpful. Right. So if I have someone with input, I can share my whole Adelante virtual strengths library with them. If they don't, right? If they don't have high input, I'm like, here's a resource you might enjoy. Here's one podcast, right? How about you? How does it show up with some of your other strengths?
What if the people you coach could navigate their total health and performance with the same ease as using Google Maps? Our friends at Wellbeing at Work help organizations turn fragmented programs and frustrated employees into thriving, high-performing teams. Wellbeing at Work acts as a GPS to enable total health and peak performance, pinpointing where your people are now, where they want to go, and the best path to get there. With Wellbeing at Work, coaches become credentialed navigators with personalized insights, proven tools, and human-centered support. If you're a coach committed to performance and care, Wellbeing at Work is your path forward. Navigating at scale from burnout to breakthrough is now possible. Visit podcast.34strong.com to find a better way forward to empower a healthier, more energized workforce. Again, that's podcast.34strong.com, well-being at work.
Yeah, so the first one is woo, right? And before I really understood that, teachers didn't like the fact that I'd go to a different conference or I'd go visit other schools and then come back. And I'm like, well, you're a math teacher. So do you know what they're doing at that school? And all the teachers were like, how do you know people at other schools? How do you remember their names? Are you interviewing? And I said, no. I just, I met them. And then they said that they did this cool thing. So for example, woo and ideation, right? For me, some Gallup coaches think that I have relator or connectedness because my individualization with my woo looks like relator. And my individualization from raw to like a refined develop with ideation looks like and feels like connectedness. So I think my individualization is my chameleon talent in that if I'm present and I take a few breaths and I'm intentional, I can actually team it up with one of my other talents, right? And do that. And so fast forward many years, I'm in the corporate world and I thought, I don't bring anything here. My experience is K-12 and education and nonprofit. But what I realized is I can completely tell apart the different people on a team. So if I'm new on a team, one of the things the managers would be like, if I have an idea, can we? And then before I knew my activator would get me in trouble, like I would just blurt out. And the manager would say something like, hey, you know what? You're new. We kind of distracted. It was just not good. The next year after getting coached, I would show up differently. While I'm waiting for my PIV badge or whatever I needed to do to get my job done, I would say, hey, manager, I feel like we're stuck. Is this a good time for ideas or should I just wait? And the manager would say, you know what? I really appreciate your enthusiasm. You're new here. Well, we get distracted. Let's go ahead and take it offline. That manager came up to me after and said, hey, what were you thinking? And I said, I'm sorry. But no. I want to know, what ideas did you have? I told him an idea. And he said, how did you get all that in 5 days? I said, well, while I'm waiting for my badge, I talked to 3 of the people on our team. I set up calls. I learned what they had their perspectives from the client. And then I put it all together and I just thought maybe we could do this. And I remember that manager, right, saying, oh my gosh, I've worked with this team for 6 months. I don't know how you got all that in 5 days, but why don't you present something next week? I said, no, I'd rather not. Why don't I get them and have them present? And so that's the kind of like woo, ideation, activator, all with my individualization tied a nice little bow on something where I didn't have to be in front of the ring, right? Did
You
that make sense?
just it a beautiful and I wow, for anyone listening, I just want to, just kind of call out how beautifully you're analytical, how you've analyzed your strengths and can see the connections, but also you're really making an important point for us coaches in that combinations of strengths can look like other strengths, can mirror. And so you don't have connectedness, that specific Clifton strengths as a dominant theme, and yet it can appear that way. And also I love how you talked about woo. It's actually learning about other people. I always thought because of my woo and learner, that how my learner impacted my woo. But you have really talked about, so people that have learner that maybe don't have woo or don't have maybe high relationship, they can use almost like mirror in reverse. I'm going to go learn about the experiences of 3 new people. I mean, that's essentially what woo does from a different perspective. So I'm sorry, I know we moved a little away from individualization, but I just really wanted to call out how important that is. There's such sophistication in how you described your strengths.
Thank
Eduardo.
you. Well, and I think like you just makes me think, if you're a leader with individualization, maybe you could look at, right, who are the people on your team that have talents that you don't have high. In other words, they're raw for you, you don't value. And so how do you get them to give you the sort of CEO board of directors view of your team and of the client? Like you just said, like woo and learner, for example. If sometimes people feel like I don't have enough influencing things, right, on my thing. Well, if they have individualization, right, that might be one way where they can, well, what is a way that you can persuade or influence your client or your customer? If they had learner, like you said, they could do this similarly. And I think that might be our bias, I'll call it, about how we each use our talents, right? Because we can see the uniqueness even of the talent and how it shows up.
So that's absolutely, just if I can talk about connectedness and individualization for a minute. So in theory, individualization is seeing the tree, right? So you're in a forest and seeing this unique, beautiful tree. You touch the bark, right? You look at the leaves and you're seeing this tree. You're marveling at how tall it is, right? Well, connectedness for me, it's my number 6. For me, connectedness pulls me up to see the whole entire forest. So when I'm coaching people, and some folks listening to this, you might have both individualization and connectedness high, or have how Eduardo talked about, sort of some other combo that looks like connectedness. But you can toggle back and forth between the detail and the big picture. And that's a superpower, right? That ability to see both. And I think that to develop that further, what I have done is to be very intentional, right? So when I feel like, wow, you're focusing on that one person in the training who's cold right now, and you want to help that person not be cold, I have to look at everybody else in the room. They are not cold. And so before we turn the heat on, let's see if we can give that person a sweater or a jacket or a shawl, right? So that connectedness can help me, because that overuse of individualization can sometimes forsake, right, the group for an individual.
That's perfect. And Alicia, so you and I both do a lot of group work, right? And I think one of the things I've noticed, in the last year, I've taken on getting certified in facilitation mastery. I've connected with a company that just literally, I call myself a conversational choreographer for years. They actually have named 7 choreographies. In other words, frameworks. Yeah, definitely. I have it here on my board.
I got to write that down. Conversational choreographer.
That's right. And I happen to like music and dancing. So that's...
Yeah, I gotta come back in for that one too. Conversation choreographer. That's a new term. That's so cool. Have you heard that before, Alicia?
No. And And I love that with the communication, right? It's so elegant, right? Conversational choreographer.
I have to remember that Eduardo is a
Oh, I
dancer.
love it.
He is a dancer. So yes, I can see where
So
that.
there's a little bit of that. Yeah, and part of the challenge is as individualization, people when I do a feedback session, they say I'd love to have more coaching with you, and I've never really been professionally a one-on-one coach. Although people say I'd love a 3-month relationship with you, and I don't know what it has been. Maybe my individualization might want it more than they want it, and I think I would get too invested. And I am considering literally open up a business because people have asked me about that. Instead, I've used my individualization as a conversational choreographer in a room full of 30 people. Either they're a pre-built team or strangers that have been asked to come to this software training or come to this soft skills training. I can somehow, like a conductor, instead of being I'm here to give you content, I am going to give some content, but I'm going to pull out what I call the answers in the room. And Alicia, you and I both started with the curiosity that I think an individualization person has. So I will literally hear what this person said and say, you know what? Why don't we remember everyone's names? And so what's funny is at the end of a 2-day new hire orientation, which is what I'm primarily doing right now for a company, everyone comes up to me and says, I don't know how you do it. You got all of our names in 2 days. I only remember the people at my table, and they think it's magic. And I said, well, it's practice, but part of it is my commitment to having everyone feel. And what's the, unique and the best way to have everyone feel seen and heard outside of actually listening, right, is to actually have them say their name out loud. And that is a little bit of neuroscience.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what you said. And again, because we've got the communication in Moo. So I've been a facilitator and a trainer for more than 30 years. So I wasn't a classroom teacher, but I facilitated conflict resolution in schools. So I taught kids how to be peer mediators, all of that. So facilitating, and then I facilitated professional groups, community groups. And one of the first tricks that I learned, and it was so important to me, was when people go around and say their name, if I don't know them already. And even if, sometimes we don't always, back in the day, I didn't have name tents for people, right? Like in when I was doing trainings, on a piece of paper, I created, right, the horseshoe shape, and I wrote the names so I could easily connect that person with that person. And people's names, the pronunciation of their names, what they want to be called. And Gallup is so good about that, right? They want to, how do you want to be called? So I just wanted to, just to call that out about the names, 100%. And I want people to get my name, right? And sometimes Alicia, that's how I pronounce it. That can be hard for people. And I'm sure with Eduardo as well, people want to, shorten it or do something else to it. And so that's, again, that idea of being individualized too. So thanks for letting me add that. I know we got to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah, we'll switch gears with that. I mean, as a application with how you see that, right, as an example of how you're applying it as a trainer, how do you think managers and leaders can apply it in the still facilitating a team meeting, a scrum meeting if you're in software development, right? A board meeting if you're in nonprofits. How would you suggest they do that with individualization?
Well, I think that very similar, and I think probably Relator's quite one of the common in the Gallup database, and so I think Relator can also there's so, within the relationship building themes within each domain, those themes are quite there's some overlap, but getting to know each person on your team. Right? Really getting, and I do a lot of training. So I train managers and leaders in coaching skills. I have a program called the Coach Approach to People Management. And that is the biggest piece. So it's like, borrow individualization, get to know, and it sounds like such a small thing, but I was working with somebody who was, anyways, I'll skip that story, but, I was working with someone who's pronouncing one of his team members' names wrong. So when we went around and did introductions, I heard how he pronounced his name. And I heard how the manager pronounced their name. And it was not the same. So just, even just basic things like that you and I may take for granted, it's really, I think that's such a very kind of core basic practice for managers and leaders, is that piece, that individualization piece. What do you think?
Well, and I'll take your example. Like, if someone is mispronouncing a name, I used to be like, well, let's get it right. And I realized because harmony is very low for me in terms of my talents. So what I have to do is so I have to use my woo and individualization to create a safe space, so that just because I want this person's name to be said correctly, I don't want to have the other person feel alienated and even say that they said it wrong, for example. So one way that I would encourage people who have individualization is to create a curiosity gap for yourself. Ask yourself questions that your brain is always trying to answer, right? Or coach someone, right? So one question might be, how do I get everyone to feel heard and seen? And so in the example you have, I hear that someone mispronounced someone's name. I actually, a lot of my life not using Eduardo. I basically use Ed. I have a keynote speech. I talk about Eddie, Ed, and then eventually Edward.
Coaches and service-based business builders want to 10x your impact and income? Join the Strengthspreneur Mastermind, led by Brent O'Bannon, MCC, author of the Strengthspreneur 10x Workbook, and the world's first Gallup-certified strengths coach. This powerhouse group gives you personalized coaching, peer support, and proven tools to launch and scale your unique strengths. We meet 2 times a month. Come sharpen your strategy, boost confidence, and grow smarter, not harder. Visit podcast.34strong.com to thrive as a strengthspreneur. Again, visit podcast.34strong.com. Join Brent O'Bannon and thrive as a strengthspreneur.
Alicia. I went by Alicia when I grew up in upstate New York, and then when I lived in Spain, I was Alicia. So I've had it all. Yeah.
Well, and so what I do is say, hey, folks, I just want to make sure we get everyone's name right. I heard one version. For example, some of you might be afraid of saying someone's name. I introduce myself as Eduardo, but it sounds like it's like Eduardo, but I'm not that weird. Now, Eduardo was something I was nicknamed and called on when I was in 3rd grade. So I took something from my past to give an example, and everyone laughs. Oh, Eduardo. Yeah, see, you don't have to roll the R's. Similarly, when I have a name that might be Pakistani, Indian, that might have a certain way that English speakers who don't speak another language will never learn to move their lips that way. But it gives grace to someone. And now that manager, right, cannot feel embarrassed, and they could try it out if they wanted to. But that conversation happened because of my individualization, was able to both honor the person whose name was said wrong, but honor the person who didn't know and how to even ask, am I saying this wrong? And so my woo, instead of me using it to like have them love me, no, I actually created a space where 2 people could just connect on their names. Because the one guy, actually, Joe is what, they used to call me Joey, and I hated it, right? But I knew it was Joseph when I was in trouble with my mom. And so that kind of connection is how I think some leaders who have individualization, they could create that amongst their teams by acknowledging it. Yeah, curiosity gap is what I would say.
Curiosity is so important. One other thought for people, managers or leaders that have high individualization, it's just the caution of it, right? So we were talking about, how important it is to, individualize, and just also pulling back from time to time and being, kind of very clear about are you forsaking the group or the team too much to kind of cater to, because that's what I do. I see individualization. I want to cater to people. I want to cater. My younger son likes green grapes and my older son likes red grapes, and I like to cater to that. Whereas someone else may say they're lucky they get grapes at all, right? So there's a catering piece to that. And particularly when you're a manager or leadership position, you have to be really careful about that. And especially if you're not doing that equally, right? So there can be it can look like preferential treatment or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I remember one time I was in a training of 40 people, a team that wants to know their strengths, and someone kept asking a question. And unfortunately, my analytical number 4 was willing to give them all the data until I stopped. And in the training, I fully said, folks, let me just show you how individualization showed up as raw. Okay. Who has individualization? Everyone raised their hand. Great. I had people engaged. I said, my individualization wanted him to get his questions answered so well. And he was asking data questions. So why wouldn't I share? But then guess what I did? I lost 39 of you potentially in that conversation. So I needed to step back and say, who else would like to know this? Oh, okay. You know what? Can I send a resource? I don't have learner input, but can I do this? Can we talk about it at lunch? And that balance of, again, being a choreographer, right? I cannot focus on that one person at the, like, forsaking like the group or the intention
That's
of the
right.
group.
That's right.
I want to tell you both thank you for the in-depth look you've given our listeners on the strength of individualization today. And listeners, if you derived serious value from this, and most of us know someone with this strength top 10, please do share this episode along. I think they'll get a lot of value from it. And as you'll hear in a moment, you'll be able to contact either of our two panelists today who gave you such expertise, both in their own journey with the strength, but application. So Alicia, I'll come to you first. Can you tell our listeners where to find you, who you're working with, and what you have going on?
Yeah. So again, I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but I travel all over. And I'm a workplace. I focus on the workplace, and I do one-on-one coaching, a lot of manager and leadership development. I also do partnership coaching. So that's a little unique because of my background in conflict resolution, and I bring Clifton strengths into it. And I help people have different kinds of conversations than they may be able to have on their own. So that's a really, I love doing that. And then I work with teams, a ton of team building. I do other things, DISC and, team retreats and all of that. And I work I work cross sectors. So I, nonprofit and public sector, I work with government, like 31st Strong, and I work with corporations as well. So I do it all. In terms, sorry, that sounded wrong. In terms of the type of client, I have a very broad client base.
Perfect. Thank you, Eduardo.
I do not do it all. I do not have Achiever in my top 10. I don't do it all.
Noted. Alicia does not do it all, but what she does do, she does with excellence. Yeah, does a lot with excellence.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Brandon, like I said, a conversational choreographer. I love also being a catalyst for connection. So people can find me on LinkedIn pretty easy. I have a new website I'm doing, eduardospeaks.com. EdVisionit was a brand I used to have, and I love the concept of education. It helps you see anything you want, and you can go have it. And that's actually how I'm listed in LinkedIn.com, EdVisionit. But, the folks that I love working with, I just love to create group conversations, whether it's in a team building or team room, whether it's, like you said, I have a 6-week learning coaching program where people are rising leaders, for example, especially underrepresented groups like minorities and Latinos and women in corporate world who are looking to get promoted. But actually recently I've been officiating weddings too, and I shifted how I've actually made the wedding more interactive, and people have been like, wow, that's a unique wedding. Where people got to participate, and the couple felt so like it. So I'm actually in this mastery of facilitation. I'm looking to do more of that crowdsourcing, wisdom collecting type of thing. But that's it.
Brandon, sorry, Eduardo reminded me. So my company name is Adelante Coaching and Consulting. And Adelante is a Spanish word for forward. So Adelante Coaching Consulting. I'm on LinkedIn, adelantecc.com.
Perfect. Eduardo, I've done my share of officiating as well. And I too have enjoyed individualizing the wedding experience and having people really appreciate that uniqueness that you brought to that couple, that celebration, and just got to do that for my son this couple
congratulations to him. And which talent you said you didn't have individualization high, so which talent do you believe helped you in making these weddings unique?
So Because I'm a maximizer, I think every time I go to do something, I can't do it the same way I did it the last time, and with a range are really high. So those two really operate for me like individualization, because like most people, as you both are sharing, similar experience that I will nuance every training, every situation, every individual to what it is that will get them the best outcome.
That's great, Brandon. And again, for the next episode, I mean, and that's part of the challenge. I think Alicia and I, we probably want to do that way more than we need to do that.
Every workbook I create for each client.
Don't ask my team then, because they're going to tell you that I'm the one that they finally locked me out.
Nothing off the shelf.
They did. They locked me out and threw away the key. I don't even know where the files are anymore to make changes to any of our content. That's they got drastic with me. They're like, nope, he's out. Can't he could touch marketing material. That's what we'll let him touch.
Well, that's good. Well, that's the box. Brandon, can I share a nuance on a quote for folks? For folks who don't have individualization, one of the things I want to say, I've heard the expression, the whole is not just greater, and the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? So I'd like to say that the whole is not just greater than the sum of the parts. It actually can be 10x when we honor the unique and individual contributions of people. So whether you have individualization or not, find a way to honor that uniqueness with whatever talent you have and make your team 10x more than the sum of its parts. And so that's why I wanted to share that.
Okay, well, thank you both so much. And listeners, again, so much value from today's episode. Please do share this along. We look forward to seeing you again on Coach to Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Alicia.
A pleasure and honor to be with you. Thanks.
That's a wrap on this episode of Coach to Coach. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're a strengths coach looking to dive deeper, join the Coach Strong community. It's where coaches like you come together to share insights, support one another, and discover partnership opportunities. Be part of the conversations that are elevating our industry. Email community@34strong.com to join today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Coach to Coach. Stay strong.